everyone, and welcome to a discussion about the demotion of Sergei Surovikin. Now, Surovikin was appointed to command Russian forces in Ukraine on October 8th of 2022. Prior to that, he was best known for commanding the successful Russian military intervention in Syria, and his appointment marked a change of pace that focused on attrition and bombardment of Ukrainian civilian centers and specifically energy infrastructure. Now, it's worth noting that it is likely this change in strategy was not devised by Surovikin. More, he was put in place to carry it out once it was picked out, for the first and most obvious reason that it was similar to what he had done in Syria and fitting with his style, and second, that he was liked by hawks and hardliners like Prigozhin and Kadyrov. And here's one more thing that we'll come back to later that I'm just going to throw out there. No proven basis for this, so it's just a little bit of theorizing. Surovikin was put in charge just before the withdrawal from Kherson, and he was pulled out right around the time of what looks to be the first serious Russian victory in a very long time, specifically the taking of Soledar. Now we'll come back to that in a minute. Now, Surovikin no longer has that job. He has been removed from command and made the deputy of the new commander, Russia's Chief of Staff Valery Gerasimov. Prior to this, he was the highest-ranking military officer in Russia, and now he is directly in command of the war in Ukraine. So why was Surovikin removed? Not for military reasons, because he's not doing great, but he's doing better than the previous people. So he was removed for political reasons. So Prigozhin is probably the closest thing to a rising political star in Russia these days. And he recently claimed to have taken the city of Soledar, which, as I said earlier, biggest victory that Russia's had in a very long time. And Prigozhin has been very clear in his opinion that this was purely a victory by Wagner and not by the regular Russian army. He's been very aggressive about this. And again, we'll come back to this later. He has been very critical of the chief of staff of the Russian army, Valery Gerasimov, who has been appointed as Surovikin's replacement. And a lot of what Putin does as president of Russia is a balancing act. He is there to balance the interests and goals and maneuvering of the different factions in the Kremlin and outside of the Kremlin, and keep the military and the security services and the technocrats and people like Prigozhin happy, and avoid clashes between them while keeping them all separated enough that they won't be able to threaten him. So Prigozhin gets a major victory, he improves his prestige, he makes himself look good, and then his favored military commander is demoted, and somebody he doesn't like is put in charge. Balance. It's entirely possible that if the tide starts to turn in favor of the Russian army as opposed to Wagner, Surovikin will be put back in command. And I want to be clear here, this is not a fact. This is my interpretation of the facts, and I feel it fits well, but there are other interpretations and this is not definitive. And there are probably multiple reasons at play here. If this is accurate, it's likely not the only factor. Overall, this seems likely to be a good thing for Ukraine. Gerasimov, based on his previous performance throughout the war, and the Russian army's state in general, seems to be at least somewhat less competent than Surovikin was. This has been a short conversation about the demotion of Sergei Surovikin, and thank you for listening.